Nashville, 2075. Music City still lives, but not where you'd expect. The stages are empty. The honky-tonks are silent. Yet music thrives more than ever in virtual reality. Broadway became a digital realm where millions gather nightly. Holographic legends perform beside living artists. This is the story of how Nashville lost its physical soul to save its musical heart, how a city built on live performance survived when live became obsolete. It started with pandemic lessons never forgotten. The COVID shutdowns of 2020 devastated Nashville's live music economy. When the second pandemic hit in 2038, airborne and far deadlier, the city faced extinction. Musicians couldn't perform. Tourists stopped coming. Broadway's neon lights went dark. But technologists proposed a solution: move Music City into virtual reality. The infrastructure already existed. Desperation made the impossible inevitable. By 2045, Virtual Broadway launched. Users worldwide donned VR headsets and entered a perfect recreation of Lower Broadway. Digital honky-tonks filled with avatars. Musicians performed from home studios, their holographic selves appearing on virtual stages. Initially seen as temporary, it became permanent. Physical Broadway never recovered. Why visit Nashville when you can experience it perfectly from home? Tourism, as we knew it, died. Digital tourism replaced it. The physical city adapted to survive. Real estate crashed. Honky-tonks closed permanently. But the buildings were repurposed as VR production studios. Artists record performances in empty venues, their holographic avatars filling virtual copies of the same spaces. The architecture remains, but serves different purposes. Nashville became a production city rather than a performance city. The stages stand empty, but the music never stopped. Virtual Nashville attracted billions of visitors annually, far more than physical Nashville ever could. Users worldwide attend shows nightly. No travel required, no hotel costs, no physical limitations. A fan in Tokyo, Mumbai, or Sao Paulo experiences Broadway identically to someone in Tennessee. Democracy of access replaced geography of privilege. But something essential was lost: the unrepeatable magic of being physically present when music happens. Musicians' lives transformed completely. Performers work from home studios, never traveling, never facing crowds. Anxiety disorders decreased. Work-life balance improved. But the road, that crucible where musicians developed, disappeared. Artists no longer pay dues in dive bars or build followings through grueling tours. They upload performances, algorithms promote them. Fame happens or doesn't based on data. The romance died. The efficiency soared. Sarah Chun moved to Nashville in 2040 to become a country singer. She never performed for a physical audience. Her avatar draws millions in virtual Grand Ole Opry. She's wealthy, famous, and has never shaken a fan's hand. When asked if she regrets the virtual-only career, she pauses. How can you miss something you never experienced? The younger generation doesn't mourn physical performance. They don't know what was lost because they never had it. The Grand Ole Opry still broadcasts from the Ryman Auditorium, but the audience is virtual. The historic venue seats 0 physical attendees. Performers play to empty pews while billions watch through VR. The hallowed circle of wood from the original stage still exists. Artists stand on it, but the ritual feels hollow without physical witnesses. Tradition adapted to survive, but adaptation killed what made tradition meaningful. Holographic resurrection became controversial. Johnny Cash, Patsy Cline, and Hank Williams perform nightly as AI-generated holograms. Their estates licensed digital recreations. Virtual audiences love it. Seeing legends is now possible forever. But musicians call it necromancy. The dead can't consent. Their art becomes product divorced from humanity. Music immortalized and simultaneously desecrated. The price of eternal performance is dignity in death. Physical Nashville became affordable for the first time in decades. When tourism collapsed, housing prices crashed. Artists could finally afford to live in Music City. The irony: Musicians moved to Nashville just as Nashville stopped being a music city in traditional sense. They live in cheap apartments in beautiful, empty downtown. The city they dreamed of living in no longer exists as they imagined. They inherited a corpse. Songwriting survived intact. Composers still create in Nashville studios. But the collaborative writing sessions that define Nashville for people in a room with guitars mostly happen in virtual spaces now. Writers, avatars, meet in digital rooms. The songs are still good, technically. But veteran writers notice something missing. Chemistry through screens isn't chemistry. The magic of shared physical space can't be digitized completely. The Bluebird Cafe, the legendary listening room where stars were born, still operates. Sort of. The physical space hosts recording sessions. But the famous in-the-round performances happen virtually. For avatars sit on virtual stools, performing to virtual audience. The intimacy that made the Bluebird magical, being feet from artists, breathing the same air, is simulated but not replicated. Simulation is very good. It's just not real. Revenue models changed completely. Physical tickets are obsolete. Virtual performances are free, funded by advertising and virtual merchandise. Avatars by digital outfits, virtual drinks, and NFT memorabilia. Musicians earn more from virtual merch than music itself. Taylor Swift's hologram sells millions in digital cowboy hats. The business survived by monetizing simulation. Music became loss leader for virtual retail. Addiction to virtual Nashville became epidemic. Users spend 12 hours daily in the digital city, neglecting physical lives. Marriages collapse. Jobs lost. VR addiction treatment centers opened across Tennessee. The irony. The thing that saved Nashville's economy destroys individual lives. The city profits while citizens suffer. Virtual reality provided escape that became prison. Entertainment became pathology. Music education transformed. Berkeley and Belmont still exist, but teach primarily VR performance, avatar design, and digital production. Learning guitar remains important, but learning to optimize holographic presence matters more. Students never play dive bars. They debut in virtual venues with potentially billions watching. Pressure intensified. The gradual path to mastery disappeared. You're viral or you're nothing. The physical music stores closed last in 2055. Vinyl had resurgence in 2020s, but digital ultimately won. Grum Guitars, the legendary vintage shop, exists only as virtual showroom. Digital guitars sound identical to vintage Martins. Collectors buy NFT certificates for guitars that don't physically exist. Ownership divorced from possession. You own a 1952 Gibson that nobody can touch. Property became abstract concept. Surprisingly, classical music thrived. The Nashville Symphony performs to larger virtual audiences than ever filled the Schermerhorn. People who never attended orchestra suddenly discovered classical music through accessible VR. High art democratized. But musicians note the audience doesn't understand concert etiquette. Avatars talk during performances, leave mid-symphony. Accessibility came with loss of reverence. Democracy killed decorum. Broadway's neon signs still glow, but they're advertisements for virtual experiences rather than physical venues. The famous booths outside honky-tonks remain, now photo opportunities for the few physical tourists who visit to see where the virtual city is modeled from. Nashville became its own museum. People tour the real city to understand the virtual one. Reality became reference material for simulation. Dating in Nashville evolved strangely. Musicians meet in virtual venues, date as avatars, fall in love before meeting physically. Chemistry in VR doesn't guarantee chemistry in reality. The divorce rate among musicians who met virtually is 70%. But they keep meeting digitally because physical Nashville social scenes are dead. You date online or don't date. Geography stopped mattering. Nashville musicians date people worldwide who never visit Tennessee. The Cumberland River floods worse than ever with climate change. But it doesn't matter because nobody's downtown to be displaced. The irony: physical Nashville can flood without economic impact. Virtual Nashville is immune to weather. Climate resilience achieved through abandonment. The city became proof that you can save a place by leaving it. Geography matters until it doesn't. Veteran musicians who remember physical performance speak of it like war veterans speak of combat, something terrible and essential that shaped them. They describe the energy exchange between performer and audience, the unpredictability, the risk. Younger musicians listen politely, unable to comprehend. That world is gone. Explaining physical performance to virtual native artists is like explaining color to the blind. Experiential knowledge can't transfer. Surprisingly, jazz experienced renaissance. The improvisation and spontaneity of jazz translates better to virtual formats than expected. Jazz clubs in virtual Nashville pack nightly. But the intimate improvisation between musicians suffers. When you're in separate locations, musical conversation has latency. The split-second responses that make jazz magical don't work through internet connections. Jazz survived. Jazz magic didn't. The Country Music Hall of Fame still operates, but visits decreased 90%. Why visit a museum when you can tour it virtually with AI guide who knows everything? The physical building houses artifacts nobody sees. Hank Williams' guitar sits in a case, pristine and unwitnessed. Museums proved that physical preservation requires physical visitation. If nobody sees the real thing, why preserve it? Memory became digital, making physical remembrance obsolete. Bootleggers evolved. Digital pirates record virtual performances and sell access to those who won't pay subscription fees. But unlike physical bootlegs, digital copies are perfect. The romantic notion of grainy concert recordings disappeared. Bootlegs are identical to originals. Piracy is now about price, not rarity or quality. The economy of scarcity died when digital made infinite copies possible. Mental health issues among musicians skyrocketed. The isolation of performing alone to cameras, the lack of immediate feedback, the addiction to metrics, streams, likes, avatar attendees, created unprecedented psychological strain. Musicians need audiences like plants need sun. Virtual audiences don't nourish the same way. Depression became occupational hazard. Success doesn't prevent it. Famous virtual performers collapse mentally while their avatars smile. Tribute bands found new purpose. Since legends perform as holograms, tribute acts differentiate by offering imperfect performances. They deliberately make mistakes, forget lyrics, interact spontaneously with avatars. The humanity that was liability became selling point. People crave imperfection after experiencing algorithmic perfection. Tribute bands became more authentic than the real holographic legends. Fake humans beat real holograms. The tourism economy adapted. Guided tours show where famous virtual venues are modeled from. It's like visiting movie sets, seeing the real but less impressive original. Tour guides explain, this is the actual Tootsies that inspired virtual Tootsies. The real became footnote to the simulation. Baudrillard was right. The map preceded the territory. Except he got it backward. The simulation exceeded the original. Wedding industry shifted entirely virtual. Couples marry in virtual Grand Ole Opry with avatar guests from worldwide. It's cheaper, more accessible, and nobody's excluded by geography. But the sensory experience, smell of flowers, texture of wedding dress, taste of cake, disappeared. Weddings became visual and audio only. Marriage remains meaningful. The ceremony celebrating it became hollow. Love survived. Romance adapted into something unrecognizable. Elderly Nashvillians who remember live music speak of it with religious reverence. They describe seeing Waylon Jennings at Exit/In, cramming into the Bluebird. Their grandchildren listen with incomprehension. Those experiences sound mythical. The generation gap isn't just technology, it's ontological. They lived in different realities. The past is truly foreign country when the landscape literally doesn't exist anymore. Record labels adapted or died. The majors became virtual experience companies. They don't sell music, they sell avatar skins, virtual venue upgrades, and experience packages. Universal Music Group is now primarily a metaverse developer. The business survived by abandoning its original product. Music became free content, attracting users to profitable virtual ecosystems. The thing itself became worthless. The context became valuable. Surprisingly, music quality improved technically. Without physical limitations, orchestras can be any size. Acoustic perfection is guaranteed. Every note is flawless. But soul decreased. The human imperfections that made music moving disappeared. Perfection is boring. Listeners crave mistakes. A movement emerged. Raw music where artists deliberately include errors, breathing sounds, tuning imperfections. Authenticity meant adding back flaws that technology removed. The Nashville Predators still play hockey, but attendance is fully virtual. Bridgestone Arena hosts games for zero physical fans. Athletes perform for cameras. Sports became performance art without witnesses. Players report the emptiness affects performance. Competitive drive partly comes from crowd energy. Remove crowds, remove something essential. Sport survived. The spirit of sport didn't. Surprisingly, classical music composition thrived. Composers work with virtual orchestras, testing arrangements instantly without costly studio time. Experimental music flourished. But premieres lack impact. When Beethoven's Ninth premiered, riots occurred. Now premieres are software launches. The cultural event disappeared. Art happens efficiently and meaninglessly. The work exists, but doesn't matter the same way. Roadies and sound engineers faced obsolescence. The physical infrastructure of concerts, building stages, mixing live sound, hauling equipment, disappeared. Many retrained for virtual production. Others left the industry entirely. The working-class foundation of music industry collapsed. Only performers and programmers remained employable. The ecosystem that supported music died. Music survived, but the community that made it possible didn't. Music festivals disappeared then reinvented themselves. Bonnaroo and CMA Fest became purely virtual events. Millions attend without mud, heat, or porta potties. Comfort increased. Magic died. The physical ordeal of festivals created bonding. Shared suffering made memories. Virtual festivals are pleasant experiences immediately forgotten. Entertainment without discomfort is consumption without meaning. Memory requires physical experience. Interestingly, church music remained physical. Congregations insisted on live worship. Virtual church failed because worship requires communal physical presence. Sacred music needs shared space. The secular music industry went completely virtual, while religious music stayed stubbornly physical. Faith communities understood what the music industry didn't. Some experiences require bodies in rooms. Spirituality saved what capitalism killed. The question emerged: what is a musician if they never perform physically? If your avatar performs while you sit in pajamas eating cereal, are you really a performer? Identity crisis spread through the industry. Musicians need self-concept rooted in physical performance. Without it, they feel like imposters. Success doesn't cure it. Fame doesn't help. The existential confusion of being famous for something your hologram does haunt the industry. Surprisingly, karaoke thrived. Virtual karaoke bars packed with avatars singing badly. People crave performing, even poorly. Karaoke provided participation that professional music couldn't. The amateur became more vital than the professional. People need to make music, not just consume it. Karaoke understood what the industry forgot. Music is verb, not noun. Making matters more than hearing. Music therapy adapted remarkably. Therapists use VR to help patients process trauma through virtual performances. Social anxiety suffers practice performing to virtual audiences. The therapeutic applications expanded. But human connection between therapist and patient still requires physical presence. Hybrid models emerged: virtual practice, physical processing. Even therapy proved some things need physical proximity. Healing requires presence. The underground scene emerged. Illegal physical concerts in warehouses, basements, and secret venues. Musicians and fans risk fines to experience live music. The underground doesn't sound better. Audio quality is worse than virtual. But it feels real. Sweat, body heat, shared breath. The prohibition made it precious. What was normal became contraband. Music returned to its rebellious roots by being physically performed. Generational warfare erupted. Boomers and Gen X, who remember live music clash with Gen Z and Alpha, who don't. The young mock the old for nostalgia. The old condemn the young for accepting simulation. Both are right. Both are wrong. The transition from physical to virtual music is cultural trauma without resolution. Society splits between those who remember and those who never knew. Interestingly, music education for children remained physical. Parents insisted kids learn real instruments, not just virtual ones. Guitar lessons continue. School bands persist. Adults recognize that children need physical skill development. But kids graduate into industry with no use for physical skills. They learn obsolete abilities. The cruelty of teaching children things they'll never professionally use emerged as ethical question. The copyright system collapsed, then rebuilt. When performances are digital and infinitely copyable, ownership became abstract. New frameworks emerged based on usage tracking rather than sales. Musicians earn fractions of cents per virtual attendance. The democratization musicians wanted created poverty they didn't anticipate. Everyone can make music. Almost nobody can live from it. Abundance created different scarcity. Surprisingly, musical instruments appreciated in value despite obsolescence. Vintage guitars became art objects, not tools. Collectors buy them purely for aesthetic appreciation. A '59 Les Paul sits in a case, unplayed, worth millions. The instruments musicians sweat on and broke strings on became museum pieces. Tools transformed into artifacts before they stopped being tools. Objects outlived their purpose. The songwriting economy changed completely. AI generates melodies and chord progressions algorithmically. Humans add lyrics and soul. But defining soul became impossible. Songwriters became editors of AI output rather than creators. The romantic notion of songwriter channeling inspiration died. Composition became optimization of algorithmic suggestions. Creativity didn't disappear. It became curation. The muse was replaced by machine learning. Backup musicians and session players faced extinction. Why hire humans when AI can generate perfect accompaniment? The skilled professionals who made Nashville recordings legendary became obsolete. A few survived as authenticity consultants, adding human imperfection to AI tracks. The middle class of music industry, people who weren't stars but made good livings, disappeared completely. Industry became stars and programmers, nothing between. Surprisingly, vinyl made final comeback. Not for listening, for tactile experience. People buy records they never play just to hold physical music. The object became more valuable than the sound. Vinyl sales increased while record players decreased. Owning something real mattered more than using it. The paradox. Music became so virtual that physical artifacts gained value precisely because they're useless. The tour bus manufacturers went bankrupt. Buses that carried bands across America for decades sat in junkyards rusting. Those buses carried more than musicians. They carried dreams, stories, relationships. The graveyard of tour buses is graveyard of music industry soul. Rows of empty buses, windows dark, going nowhere. The physical infrastructure that made rock and roll possible decays, monuments to the world we lost. The question persists, is virtual performance real music? Philosophers debate. Musicians disagree. Audiences don't care. The pragmatic answer emerged. It doesn't matter. Real or not, it's what exists. The generation that remembers physical music will die. their children will teach their children that music was always virtual. Historical memory fades in 3 generations. What was abnormal becomes the only thing anyone remembers. Yet something persists. The human need to make sound, to share it, to connect through rhythm and melody. That impulse survived even total virtualization. Children still sing spontaneously. People still hum in showers. Music-making instinct is evolutionary, not cultural. Technology changed how music is shared professionally, but couldn't kill the human drive to create it personally. The industry virtualized. The instinct remained physical. Biology beats technology. Some musicians returned to physical performance in their final years. After decades of virtual careers, they wanted to play real rooms for real people before dying. Underground venues hosted farewell physical tours for aging stars. Tickets sold for thousands. Audiences of 30 witnessed legends. These weren't concerts, they were sacred rituals. Physical performance became religious experience because rarity created reverence. Scarcity restored meaning. Some musicians returned to physical performance in their final years. After decades of virtual careers, they wanted to play real rooms for real people before dying. Underground venues hosted farewell physical tours for aging stars. Tickets sold for thousands. Audiences of 30 witnessed legends. These weren't concerts, they were sacred rituals. Physical performance became religious experience because rarity created reverence. Scarcity restored meaning. The sound engineering profession transformed entirely. Engineers no longer mix live shows or even studio sessions traditionally. They design acoustic algorithms, optimize holographic audio, and program spatial sound for VR environments. It's technical work requiring different skills. Old-school engineers retired or retrained. The craft became computer science. The art became mathematics. Hearing became secondary to coding. Different profession, same title. Surprisingly, lullabies survived unchanged. Parents still sing children to sleep physically. No algorithm replaces a mother's voice. No hologram substitutes for parents' presence. The most ancient form of music, parent singing to child, persisted through total technological revolution. This suggests something profound. Music's deepest function isn't entertainment or art. It's human bonding. Technology can't replace what's fundamentally about physical presence and love. The debate about AI-generated music reached courts. Can an algorithm own copyright? Can AI be credited as songwriter? Legal battles raged for decades. The fundamental question, what is authorship when machines create? No resolution emerged. Instead, hybrid credits became standard. Music by AI model GPT-17, human curator. John Smith. Creativity redefined as partnership between human and machine. Authorship became collaboration, whether artists wanted it or not. Fan culture evolved strangely. Superfans collect virtual memorabilia, NFTs of concert moments, avatar costumes, digital autographs. They've never met artists physically, but feel deep connection. The parasocial relationship intensified through constant virtual access. Artists are simultaneously more accessible and more distant. You can attend every show, but never shake their hand. Intimacy, without proximity, became the norm. Connection, without contact, defined modern fandom. Interestingly, drum circles persisted in public parks. People still gather physically to make music together. No technology involved. These aren't professional musicians, just humans needing to create sound communally. Authorities tried banning them as public disturbances. Communities protested. Drum circles became political. The right to make music physically became civil rights issue. Freedom to gather and create sound became constitutional question. Music became resistance. The ultimate irony. Nashville's transformation saved country music economically while killing it spiritually. More people consume country music than ever. Revenue is higher. Artists are wealthier. But the soul, the honky-tonk grit, the road stories, the connection between singer and listener evaporated. country music succeeded by becoming everything country music wasn't. The genre saved itself by killing what made it country. Success and betrayal happened simultaneously. Some predicted physical music would return eventually. Technology pendulums swing. What disappears often returns. But 50 years into virtualization, no reversal appeared. Children who grew up virtual are now parents raising virtual children. The generation that remembers physical music is dying. Soon nobody will remain who experienced live music's magic. At that point, it truly ends. Not when venues close, but when living memory expires. 3 more generations and physical music becomes myth. Nashville 2075 answered the question. Can music survive without physical performance? Yes, technically. But the answer misses the point. Music survived. Music City died. The sound continues. The soul departed. Nashville proved that art can persist after the humanity that created it disappears. We saved music by killing what made music meaningful. The city that saved itself lost itself. Broadway's neon still glows, lighting streets where nobody walks, calling crowds that never come, celebrating music that nobody makes. Welcome to Music City. Nobody's home. This has been Nashville 2075. Music City goes virtual. The music never died. It just stopped being music. The question is, what did we really save?